Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Team Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Erickson, and this is the show where we dive into real stories behind thriving workplace cultures, exploring everything from wellness and morale to leadership and productivity. Today on the Healthy Team Podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome Patrick Talley, whose background includes over $250 million in closed B2B tech deals. Patrick is also a board member at several companies. He's an investor, an advisor, and a CEO with a number of software healthcare companies. And I'm very excited, Patrick, to hear your take on what it takes to build high performing, healthy teams, especially in the fast paced, high growth
Yeah,
environments that you work in. Patrick, welcome to the show.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it, and thanks for giving me time to talk a little bit about this subject that I think is pretty important, and it's kind of team building and being a participant and team member.
Well, thank you. And you've certainly got a fascinating background. And Patrick, if you don't mind, let's kick things off by having you tell a little bit about your background and the different businesses that you're currently involved with.
Yeah. Well, uh, thanks for the compliment. I think it's easy to look like I do a lot or have done a lot. I think I've just been around a long time, and if you don't just do the same thing every day, you're gonna build some kind of a resume of success stories. I tend to tell people I don't talk as often publicly about the lack of success stories, right? The ones that taught me other lessons. But I kind of stumbled into software. Education degree from state school, put myself through, didn't know what I was going to do. Decided I didn't want to be a teacher in my senior year of college, and stumbled literally into something called a software company. Had no idea what really software was, and to give people an idea of when this was. This was 1984. Not many people knew what software was in 1984. There wasn't a lot of software, kind of outside of NASA and the U.S. government in 1984. So went to work for a scientific software company and found that I really enjoyed being around people that are a lot smarter than me. And certainly in the software world, in the scientific software world, working with geophysicists and geologists and petrophysicists and petroleum engineers, it was a world that was way beyond what my education had prepared me for. So I got to really stretch myself, and that's one of the things that I learned, early on, was the old adage of, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. I kind of up level that and always say I want to be the dumbest guy in every room, and that's going to up level my game constantly. So I really love to surround myself with people that are, a lot smarter than I am, certainly in their given fields, and then I try to let them run wild in their fields. I'm very big on agency, as long as we all kind of agree, what story we're going to let them go crazy. So with that, I've had uh, two amazing kind of rocket ship success stories around software with companies that kind of started from nothing and became very successful. And then I've had a plethora of absolute failures that I probably didn't learn all that much from. Frankly, I learned a lot from the successes. I learned what works. The failures, I only learned what didn't work. And then I've had a handful of mediocre personal successes as well. And that's put me in a place now where I've got a couple of nickels. I invest, nothing huge, but I invest. I'm part of a venture fund out of Houston that does software investing. Because of our backgrounds, our collective backgrounds, we have a fair share of healthcare type related investments and some supply chain type stuff, all B2B. I really, Mark, don't belong in any room talking about B2C. I'm a lousy consumer. I don't really understand consumers that well. I think I understand B2B behavior quite well. Um, and so that's kind of it. And I've, at this stage of the game, I've failed at retirement 3 times. I'm not very good at it. It's not because I'm a workaholic. I really like to goof off and climb mountains and fly fish. I live up in these mountains for that reason. But I feel like at times I come across a problem that I've got a skill set that's been kind of honed for that to help solve that problem. And so when I encounter a founder or a CEO who's looking for some assistance, and it's around revenue generation, sales, marketing, how to stand up that side of an early stage business, kind of pre-chasm, if you will, side of the business. I look at it and I say, okay, well, I'm prepped for this. I can help this person. If they're successful, they can then employ 100, 200, 500 people, and we can help some people make some house notes and pay some groceries and such. And so it's kind of a little bit of giving back, but it's not all altruistic. I still, take a little bit of money for these things. I like cash flow. And I did not get to whatever level of success I have by myself. I had lots and lots of mentors and people help me on the way. And it's not that hard to give back, especially when you're kind of doing it from your own terms. I don't go into offices anymore. I do it from up here in the hills. And so I get to have my tea and solve problems and really, frankly, work with people that I like to work with and not the ones that I don't like to work with, and work on problems that I'm good at. And this will be the wrapping up this kind of intro. One of the things that I really try to get everybody on the teams I work on and everybody to remember is I say I'm good at 5 things in business. 5 things I'm really, really good at in business. I'm not that good at other things in business. I'm not that good in accounting. I'm not that good at bookkeeping. I'm always getting dragged into getting the numbers put together for the 401 for the K1s and for taxes, et cetera. So I need help with things too. I concentrate on the 5 things I'm good at. I stay within those lanes. And when someone asks me about something that's outside of one of my 5, I say to them, not an expert on this one. Surely you can find somebody else who's better than that. And I'll give you a quick example. I was helping a young man uh, uh, build his company, and he got to a point where his next big problem was inventory management, and I don't know anything about inventory management. And I told him that if I'm the best person he's got for inventory management, his company's in trouble. He needs to go find someone better than me. I've helped him, and he came to me for revenue and customer traction, and I helped him a lot, and he did great. Now he's got an inventory management challenge. Next thing I know, he's on Shark Tank. Cuban investors in his deal, and I sent him a message and said, I saw that Mark Cuban's invested in your business. I think you found somebody much better at inventory management with his teams than I ever could be. So stick with your 5 and be great in those 5, and then work with people who are good at adjacent 5s.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. Patrick, you've been in boardrooms and you've been in startups alike. What consistent traits have you seen in the most healthiest and productive teams?
Agency, agency. I think that one of the things that frustrates me, Mark, is that people will talk about building all these great cultures and we've got a great refrigerator that's got Snapple, and it's got cream puffs and everybody loves that, and we've got a meditation room over in the corner where people can kind of go get their meditation on and calm down. But yet I watch them be abusive to their employees and coworkers, and I watch them not give people the kind of agency and do a lot of command and control garbage. And my philosophies around this, I really kind of look at what's excited me in business, and then I try to kind of create that for other people where I think it applies. And I don't mean that I'm sometimes in the business world I'm an extrovert. I'm not much of an extrovert in my personal world, but in my business world I am. It's a mask I wear, and it has served me well. And I don't expect everyone to be an extrovert, but I do think that most people want a sense of agency. And so my thing in really healthy cultures is we have a common agreed upon goal. It's a big, hairy, hard goal. And then everyone else has goals and milestones that will help the team get to that. And everyone's got agency to achieve those milestones. And really, I'm real big on saying this is, as long as Mark, you're within these two white lines, go crazy, man, go figure it out. You're going to spend more time driving to work thinking about that problem than I am. You and I are going to talk about it in a 10 or 15-minute meeting. If you're not better at solving that than me in 10 or 15 minutes, we don't need you, and we do need you, right? So I love the idea of smart people who are excited about solving super hard problems and then turning them loose to do it. And then so the conversations we have are not about anything except kind of those milestones. Are we going to hit the milestones? No, my dog got sick last week. Okay, how can we help you get beyond that and get to kind of the next two milestones under the allotted time, et cetera? And the point is, there's never any personal conversations. It's really about, what do you need from me to achieve your milestones? And if I'm not giving you those things, then I'm really not succeeding in my goals of enabling a team to go crazy and do some really cool stuff.
I love that. Thank you.
And I have one more statement, Mark, one more statement that I just thought of there that I think is super critical. Alignment, right? Linearity. I think that oftentimes so when I'm selling and I tell someone, when you're in a room and you're selling in a complex transaction in a B2B world, and there's 7 people in that conference room that you're selling to, 7 personal and or professional agendas going on. And you need to figure out what's going on with those personal and professional agendas, and you need to work with that. I don't want that in the organizations I work in. And that's one of the things I try to really get people to say, from the board all the way down to the person, that's answering the phones. I want everyone kind of in linearity. I want everyone to say, this is our goal, and this is what we're all going to do. And then this is what I'm going to do to help us hit that goal. But that linearity, where all the way through the organization, your win is my win and your loss is my loss, is super important, I think, for successful teams.
Oh, I love that. I mean, if everybody's pulling together, they're going to move the ship so much more quickly. That's wonderful. So how do you identify and cultivate leadership within a team, Patrick, especially in the early stage companies that you've got so much experience with?
Yeah. It's so I don't try to answer everything with a story, but I love storytelling. I think it's important. Quick story. George and I were working together. George knew me. I knew George. We'd worked together for years. We were trying to find a person to fill a role. And I said to George, who is that needy person that we keep getting these emails from? That person, whoever they are, every time they do something for us, they bring added value that we didn't ask for, right? It's kind of like they show up and deliver what we asked for, but they also bring 2 or 3 other items into the room. And he said he didn't know her either. And so we actually went out and found this person. They were doing some contract work, a little bit of contract work, and they ended up becoming an amazing employee for us. And it really was a notion of, this is a person that's kind of going above and beyond. This is a person that's excited about making a difference, excited about showing up, and shows up with a reason to show up, which is make a difference, right? And that's kind of the thing that I want people who will stand in a room and say, I've got an idea, I think it's a good idea. Can we kick it around the room? And one of the problems you run into in organizations, especially, and I think this happens unconsciously in organizations, management thinks that they're not doing this, but I've caught myself multiple times looking across the table and saying, wait a second. I've got gray hair. I've got lines on my face. I've got 45 plus years of doing this, but I'm not right all the time. I need action. I need somebody to come back and push back. So then when I do that, people will nod and say, oh yes, we'll do that. And by God, the next time somebody pushes back, Mark, even if I don't like what they're pushing back on, I accept that. I'll take one for the team. I want that person to know that everybody's got agency. I want that person to be rewarded for pushing back and having their own idea. So it really goes back to, if I give you agency, which I think is critical, then you need to step into those shoes and walk with your agency, exercise it.
So, Patrick, for in high stakes sales culture, and I think all sales culture is pretty high stakes,
Yeah.
how do you, and I know you talked about agency and alignment, but how do you maintain team morale without sacrificing performance? Making sure that people are hitting their milestones. How do you keep morale up?
Well, so we're members of teams, right? And we talk about that a lot, but we're also individuals within teams. And a beautiful human being I know, Bajoy Goswami, who I worked with for years in technology, made a comment probably 35 years ago. And he said, we need to break the golden rule. Everybody says treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's BS. That's old. We're smarter than that. We're more aware of that. We need to treat people the way they want to be treated. And we know enough about psychology now. We know about typing personalities that we can get there. I have a son that does not want to sit in a room and talk with 30 people all day long about problems. He wants to take a problem and go away and work on it for 30 hours by himself and bring back a solution or proposed solution. That's not how I want to be treated, but that's how he wants to be treated. So I think one of the things is you've got to recognize, kind of know your audience, right? Recognize, know the room, right? Feel the room out. So realize that you've got a team motivation, and then you've got individuals that you want to motivate as well within the team. And that's where the soft skills, I think, come into play. I have kind of a different approach to really all of management, and certainly in the sales world. We are very clear on goals. We agree on goals. We agree on milestones and dependencies. And then we go about our jobs. And as long as you're tracking along on your milestones, we're good to go. We don't have anything to talk about. If something's going on and your dependencies change or your milestones change, then we need to talk about it. If you need help, you need to call out for help. If I'm going to give agency, then also in return for that, I expect you to say, Patrick, it's Mark. I need some help right now, right? Kid's sick, the house caught on fire. I need somebody to backfill for me. I'm out of my element, right? I'm out of my element. I don't know how to deal with this customer, right? So I expect that, not I missed all my milestones because I didn't call out for help. Okay. And so then my part of that relationship and being honorable and honoring that relationship is when you call out for help, treating you also like a professional and like a human being, and not beating you down because you missed a milestone or you're going to miss a milestone. So what happens in the world that I live in is we talk a lot about milestones, and that's it. And so it's never a personal thing. And so therefore there's no one's ever really getting knocked around by it, right. What you kind of talked about morale. The morale should be there because we're all continuing to focus on that milestone. It's kind of like, regardless of what happened last week, you get a reset in football terms where, we get a new 4 downs to go towards that milestone. So if we're constantly resetting, we're fine there. And then I think, the other thing about sales, especially in complex sales environments where you've got multiple people, 3 to 5 people in the decision-making process, those are your dependencies. And those are not a project like building a barn or building a power plant. Those dependencies are human beings in your sales process, and they can do some flaky things, right? You can work, Mark, with a dependency, Jane over there, and she's trucking along in lockstep with you, and all of a sudden she disappears, and you have no idea why she's disappeared. She's ghosted you. You're panicking because we all do. I still do. Like, where that was going on? Are we losing the deal? Then we find out Jane was interviewing for another job. She took another job and she left. Right. So those in complex sales, the dependencies are human beings that are on your prospective customer side, and they can be really, really flaky dependencies. But back to the morale thing, I think it's focusing on the goals and then and milestones and making sure that we're always supporting each other towards those. And there's a thing, Mark, you watch really bad sales managers and VP of sales beating people down and saying, you need to call higher and you need to get rid of that gatekeeper and all those things. And I'm like, if I had all the time in the world and all the access in the world, I could close every single deal I engage in. But I never have all the access and I never have all the time because you're not giving me all the time. And I understand that, right? And they're not giving me all the access. So you've got to work with what you got in beating people down because they don't have the access, they're not getting the access, and you're not giving them the time is really, really a foolish way to manage humans.
Patrick, what are some common pitfalls that you see startup leaders fall into when they're building their very first go-to-market team?
If I sell one Coke in China for $1 today, tomorrow I can sell two for $2, and the day after I can sell three for $3. And that is a clear trajectory to revenue success. And I'm going to be a billionaire. And that whole notion of linear thinking that your market is going to accept you and adopt you and pay for you, your product or your services, and some kind of a linear growth fashion because your bloody Excel spreadsheet that gives your 3-year trajectory shows that it will. It's not going to happen that way. So I tell every single startup founder, this is going to take twice to 5 times longer than you think it is. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but that is not going to happen that way. So keep an eye on that and don't get beaten down.
Wow, that's great. Um, how do you typically balance autonomy with accountability across remote or hybrid startup teams? There's just so much
So I don't
remote
find that.
work now.
Yeah. I love remote work. I've been, for the most part, working remotely since the early 90s. Since the early 90s, for the most part, working remotely. I don't have any issue with that question. I don't have issues with the autonomy and remote notion and accountability. Because again, if you start with, you do need to hire the right people. But if you're giving people agency and all you're doing is talking about those milestones, it's all about accountability. That culture, if I were ever going to sum up the cultures that I try to be a part of and the cultures that I try to build and foster and feed, it is absolutely, Mark, the word, a culture of accountability. That's, I think, it's the most important thing in the business space, because what comes with accountability? Integrity, honesty, ethics, morals, support, right? Ownership, um, and doing hard work. It's so I don't have much of a problem with it. I have a problem with it when people aren't doing it, right? When Bob has told me for the 5th week in a row, my dog got sick and I can't get this finished. And Bob, we now need to have a conversation about whether or not you're the right guy for this gig, because we hit our milestones around here, right? It's a miserable place if you don't. So
Yeah, that's great. Patrick, looking back, was there a team or a leader that really kind of shaped your approach to culture and productivity over the course of your career?
wow. Yeah, a lot. There's been a lot. I've been really blessed with some good folks. Uh, John Mouton down in Houston, Texas, is the founder of Landmark Graphics, and John's a beautiful human being and brought a lot of wisdom and compassion, and 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 was part of a rocket ship success story, but also had patience, which is really, I think, kind of one of the most amazing things to ever witness. Because since then, frankly, I haven't encountered a lot of people with patience, and frankly, I think sometimes I don't have the kind of patience that John Mouton showed to us. So it's a funny thing. I say that, and I think actually grace was the word that John showed up with to the workplace in a company that was super fast paced and pretty hardcore place to work. John, his grace and his patience, I think, being able to stop and talk to you as a human being. He was an older gentleman than I was. I was a young kid, and he took the time to listen to me. And here I am 47 years later talking about that. That made some impact. I had one of the smartest people I've ever met, a gentleman by the name of Harvey Price. down in Houston, Texas, also put his faith in me, and when nobody else would, and he really stuck it out there. And he was the first adult that really ever said, "I think you're a smart person. I think you can do some things," and then challenged me to do those things. And so again, if you think about that, that's patience, grace, that's support, and that's giving me a sense of agency, right? Putting something on my shoulders that was really heavy and hard, and saying, "Go do it, young man. I believe that you can go do it." And so, those are two that are off the top of my head that really. They've always meant a lot to me, those people, but telling these stories, I've realized that they've also kind of stamped the things that are important to me.
I love that. And, I think graces can be really, really powerful. And I'm just kind of curious. So it sounds like John modeled grace personally. And did you see that kind of
Yeah.
flow down through the organization because of the way that he just kind of embodied that grace?
No, but I saw it.
Interesting.
I saw it, right? And that's a very honest statement. And I'll explain why. I would think when it was a smaller company, right, when there were 3, 5, and 7, and 15, and 25 and 27, I think that probably existed a lot. By the time I was working with John, the company was quite big, and he was while he was a founder, he was also over there on the building really cool smart engineering software, and wasn't part of all that operations and all that. And it was a uh, pretty brutal world. That I don't know that this is true, but it was one of the myths, if not in possibly had some truth to it. If you didn't close business in 90 days, you were gone as a new salesperson there. And that's pretty rough when you're working in B2B with complex sales and large organizations like a Chevron or a British Petroleum, right? So his grace did not permeate, but I'll tell you what, we had a Friday beer bust every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and there was always a group standing around John just getting some of that grace from him. He's a beautiful man.
Wow, that's a interesting way. That seems like a very Texan part of sales culture there. The Friday night beer bust. that's that's what a great
It
way for
was.
people to
I don't
blow
think it
off
still goes
steam.
on, but
Yeah.
it was there was a lot to it, right? I mean, you also could if someone did you a big favor during the week, you knew you were going to get a chance to see them at the end of the week, and not disrupt their day, or not go chase them down or try to find them, et cetera. Or if they were, at one point we were in separate buildings, we grew so that we outgrew the buildings. So there was a lot to that culture. We did the same where in Austin. We had kind of a Thursday or a Friday party on the patio, I guess it was called, or party in the parking lot. I can't recall. I'll get scolded for not remembering that. And I think those kind of culture things are really good to bring people together.
They are, and that's one of the downsides with remote work is, it's kind of hard to pull that off with remote work.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
So, Patrick, what role do you think humor or humanity plays in building lasting professional relationships?
I think humanity is plays 99% of the impact to it, or the fuel for it, uh, the environment for it. I think is maybe even a better way to say. And for me, humor is kind of paramount, because things get hard, and if we can't blow off a little steam with a couple of funny.
Oh, I think your screen froze. There you're
Yeah,
back now.
yeah. I said life without music and life without humor would be pretty rough.
Ah, indeed. Yeah, totally agree. Um, Last question. What advice,
Okay.
Patrick, would you give to a young founder trying to create a mission driven team culture?
Be human, be transparent, be vulnerable, be honest, and be gracious.
That's terrific
You know,
advice.
I have a thing, Mark, that those that know me well would say, "Oh, here he goes again," perhaps. But I try to I try to minimize the things that I try to keep up with in life. And so I'm always doing, well, this is my rule of three, or this is my rule of five. And I have a rule of three for relationship. And I hadn't thought about this so much in the business space, but in relationship, I have a rule that really is, it's for me and for you, right? As long as you're doing this in our relationship and I'm doing this in our relationship, then we're doing fine. And if you're not doing all three of these, let's talk about the one you're not doing completely. Or if I'm not doing all three of these, let's talk about where I'm dropping the ball. And it's show up, do the work, and own your stuff, right? And they're really simple, but that's kind of, in the workplace too. If everybody shows up and everybody does their work and everybody owns their own stuff, that's a pretty good world of accountability for each other, and then hold each other accountable for showing up, doing the work, and owning their stuff. So that's kind of it.
Love it. Love it. What a great way to close. Thank you, Patrick. This has truly been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Patrick, and sharing your insights on building healthy competitive teams. Before we wrap up, could you let our listeners know how they can find you and learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to find me, Mark, is on LinkedIn. It's such a good tool for that. It's the face looks like this, and it's Patrick L. Talley, Talley. And I'm not so overloaded on LinkedIn that I don't kind of respond to people. So if anybody ever reaches out to me on LinkedIn, they'll get a reply from me. And if they don't, send another one, and I just missed it, and you'll get a reply. And then I've got a book that I put out, and we hadn't talked about this, but it's I have purposely priced it at 50 cents, which is, and it's a downloadable PDF. I've written several books in my life. And I published all of them, had them all published. But this book I just put as a PDF so that people can get it for almost nothing. I've got a very little cost involved. And it is for any startup founder or anyone who's trying to figure out how to break into innovation with technology or with some solution or service. I will guarantee that's the best $11.50 they will spend. And if it's not, I'll send them a Starbucks gift card for $11.50 to give them their money back. That book is called Selling to Innovators, and the website is selling the number 2 in. It's a gift kind of back. It's a really, I've tried to literally everything I've talked about is in that book, plus 1,000 other things for early stage and kind of pre-chasm companies and so early stage and growth stage companies. And I love talking to people about business problems. Just like in my personal life, I like helping problem solve with my friends and family. So please look me up. What else can I do for you, Mark?
Hey, Patrick, would you mind repeating the web address where they can get your book? Because the video is a little choppy today.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's the book is called Selling to Innovators by Patrick L. Talley, and the website is selling to the number 2 innovators.com.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks for that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into the Healthy Team podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your team or anyone who's passionate about great workplace cultures. And we'll be back soon with more conversations to help you build stronger, healthier teams. Until next time, stay well and lead well.
You're
Thank
doing
you.
good stuff, Mark. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Patrick.
Yeah.